Look at me, Harvey. Make eye contact.
Congratulations.
And seeing him is, it makes my whole body shake. It brings back the trauma. It brings back those moments, of being assaulted, of him screaming. He's a scary person. But I once again stood there and stared him down, and he has no ability to make eye contact. He has no willingness to look his survivors in the face, because I think he would still like to believe, he'd like to make believe in his head that he never did anything wrong.
Why was it so important for you to be here, to stand there and look at him?
It's the first step on a long path to justice, and I am so glad I saw him walk in and out of that court today on the first day of a trial, which will hopefully lead to him ending up in jail.
Officer!
Are you comfortable telling us what your experience was?
I won't talk in detail about it. I've told that story so many times, but in 2008, I interviewed to be his nanny, and he assaulted me during the job interview. I didn't realize at the time that I was being groomed by his assistants. I think back now, and they kept using words like discretion. At the time, I didn't understand the impact of that. But it was clear that it was a setup. It was clear that this is something that's orchestrated and that he does all the time. But I didn't know, because after I was assaulted, I pulled back from the entertainment industry. I was so afraid of ever having a run-in with him ever again that I just kind of stuck to independent theater for a long time. I had my own theater company, and I worked with my friends because he destroyed my confidence in being able to be safe. So it wasn't until the stories broke that I knew that this had happened to other women.
How would you characterize the last 2 years of your life?
It's been painful, empowering, difficult, scary. I think it's been wonderful to connect with so many people who have been through similar things, not just my fellow Harvey Weinstein survivors, but people come to me all the time. So being able to help other people has been the best part of this. And being able to do things to try and change laws has been really important. But day to day, it can be agonizing. My health has taken a big hit. Like I said, our careers are being damaged.
There have been so many women that have come forward about Harvey Weinstein, about other powerful men. There have been a lot of civil suits. But what is the significance of this criminal trial? And what is the significance of the criminal justice system working through this?
Well, so I'm part of the class action lawsuit. So I've been dealing with the civil end of things for the past 2 years, which is very complex and very difficult. And we've been lucky to have lawyers who are working on contingency, because it can also be very expensive. But to see this happening in criminal court, where there is the chance that he could go away to jail for the rest of his life, is incredibly significant. It means that there is an opportunity for justice in the criminal justice system that we have set up currently. It means that a danger can be removed from the street. I think that's something that a lot of people miss. He looks very weak and very old. I truly believe if he does not go to jail, he will continue to be a danger to women. I have not been anywhere near Harvey for the past 12 years, since the day he assaulted me. And when I knew that there was an opportunity for us to come be together as survivors and stand here and stare him down and let him know that the eyes of the world are on him as he walks into court, was very important to me. I was afraid, but the moment I saw him get out of the car and saw him surrounded and protected and so unable and unwilling to make eye contact with us, it made me realize how powerful we really are, how strong and how brave, and how he really has no power anymore.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.